Once upon a time, in a bustling city called London, there was a kind and curious doctor named Alexander Fleming. Dr. Fleming loved to explore and discover new things, especially those that could help people feel better. He had a magical laboratory filled with bottles of colorful potions, shiny glass jars, and sparkling instruments that glowed under the sunlight. One sunny morning, Dr. Fleming was working in his lab, humming a cheerful tune as he observed tiny creatures through his enchanted microscope. He was searching for new ways to defeat the nasty germs that made people sick. Dr. Fleming's friends, a group of playful mice named Mopsy, Topsy, and Flopsy, were always by his side, ready to lend a helping paw. "Good morning, Mopsy, Topsy, and Flopsy." Dr. Fleming greeted his tiny friends with a warm smile. "Today, we are going to conduct a special experiment to see how we can fight these troublesome germs." "Yay! Let's help!" squeaked Mopsy, her whiskers twitching with excitement. "We love experiments," chirped Topsy and Flopsy, scampering around the lab. Dr. Fleming carefully prepared several petri dishes, each containing a gooey jelly that served as a perfect home for the tiny germs. He introduced different types of germs to each dish, hoping to find something magical that could stop them from growing. Days went by, and Dr. Fleming and his little friends checked the petri dishes every day. One afternoon, something extraordinary happened. Dr. Fleming noticed that one of the petri dishes had been contaminated by a mysterious mold. The mold was green and fuzzy, like a tiny enchanted forest growing in the middle of the dish. To his amazement, the germs around the mold had disappeared. "Look at this, my friends!" exclaimed Dr. Fleming, his eyes twinkling with excitement. "This mold seems to have magical powers. It's stopping the germs from growing." The mice gathered around the dish, their tiny noses twitching in curiosity. Mopsy climbed up to get a closer look and sniffed the air. "Dr. Fleming, this mold smells funny," she giggled. "Do you think it's really magical?" "There's only one way to find out," said Dr. Fleming, scratching his head thoughtfully. "Let's investigate this mysterious mold and see if it can help us defeat the nasty germs." Dr. Fleming carefully removed the mold from the petri dish and placed it in a special glass jar. He named the mold Penicillin, after its enchanting appearance. Over the next few days, Dr. Fleming and his furry friends observed the mold closely, taking notes and conducting various experiments. One evening, as the sun set and painted the sky with hues of orange and pink, Dr. Fleming sat down with Mopsy, Topsy, and Flopsy to share his findings. "My dear friends," he began, "this mold truly is magical. It produces a substance that kills the germs. We shall call this substance penicillin." "Wow! Penicillin sounds amazing," cheered Topsy, hopping up and down. "Can it really help people feel better, Dr. Fleming?" asked Flopsy, her eyes wide with wonder. "Yes, Flopsy, I believe it can," Dr. Fleming replied with a smile. "But we need to test it further to make sure it's safe and effective. We have a long journey ahead of us." And so, Dr. Fleming, Mopsy, Topsy, and Flopsy embarked on an exciting adventure to unlock the full potential of penicillin. They knew that their discovery could change the world and bring hope to many who were suffering from illness. Little did they know, their journey would be filled with more magical discoveries and thrilling challenges. As the stars twinkled above, Dr. Fleming and his tiny friends drifted off to sleep, dreaming of the wondrous possibilities that lay ahead. The discovery of penicillin was just the beginning of their fairy tale, and they couldn't wait to see what the future held. The days in Dr. Fleming's lab were filled with excitement and curiosity. As he continued to study penicillin, he became more and more convinced that this magical substance could change the world. News of his discovery began to spread throughout the city, and soon it reached the ears of King George, the wise and kind ruler of the land. One sunny morning, as Dr. Fleming was busy examining his latest experiment, there was a loud knock on the door. Mopsy, Topsy, and Flopsy scampered to the door and opened it to reveal a royal messenger dressed in splendid robes. "Good day, Doctor," said the messenger with a bow. "I bring a royal invitation from King George. His Majesty has heard of your marvelous discovery and wishes to meet you and learn more about penicillin." Dr. Fleming's eyes widened in surprise and delight. A royal invitation? How wonderful. Thank you, good messenger. Please tell the king that I would be honored to visit the palace. The messenger nodded and handed Dr. Fleming a scroll sealed with the royal crest. You are expected at the palace tomorrow morning. Safe travels, Doctor. As the messenger departed, Dr. Fleming turned to his furry friends. This is a great honor, my little companions. We must prepare for our visit to the palace. King George himself wants to learn about penicillin. The mice squeaked in excitement, and together they spent the rest of the day making preparations. Dr. Fleming carefully packed his notes, a few samples of the magical mold, and his trusty microscope. The next morning, Dr. Fleming and his tiny friends set off for the palace. They traveled through the bustling streets of London, passing colorful markets and cheerful townsfolk who waved and wished them well. Finally, they arrived at the grand gates of the palace, which gleamed in the sunlight. A royal guard escorted them through the magnificent gardens filled with blooming flowers and sparkling fountains. As they entered the grand hall, they were greeted by King George, who sat on a splendid throne adorned with jewels. "Welcome, Dr. Fleming," said the king with a warm smile. "I have heard much about your incredible discovery. Please tell us more about this magical substance called penicillin." Dr. Fleming bowed respectfully and began to explain his findings. Your Majesty, penicillin is produced by a special mold called penicillium. It has the extraordinary ability to kill harmful germs, and I believe it could be used to treat infections and save many lives. King George listened intently, his eyes filled with wonder. This is truly remarkable, Doctor. Can you show us how it works? Dr. Fleming nodded and set up his microscope. The mice helped him arrange the samples and notes, eager to demonstrate their discovery. As the king and his courtiers watched, Dr. Fleming explained the process and showed them the magical mold under the microscope. Look closely, Your Majesty, said Dr. Fleming, gesturing to the lens. You can see how the penicillium mold produces penicillin, which stops the germs from growing. King George peered through the microscope and gasped in amazement. It is as if the mold has a protective aura, shielding us from harm. This truly is a gift from nature. Just then, the royal gardener, Lady Elizabeth, approached with a tray of delicate flowers. She was known throughout the kingdom for her expertise in plants and herbs. Your Majesty, she said, bowing gracefully, if I may, I would like to show Dr. Fleming our enchanted garden. Perhaps we can find more magical plants that can aid in his research. The king nodded in agreement. An excellent idea, Lady Elizabeth. Dr. Fleming, would you and your friends care to join her in the garden? Dr. Fleming smiled and turned to Mopsy, Topsy, and Flopsy. What do you say, my friends? Shall we explore the enchanted garden? The mice squeaked in delight, and together they followed Lady Elizabeth to the garden. The moment they stepped into the lush, green paradise, they were surrounded by vibrant colors and enchanting scents. Flowers of all shapes and sizes bloomed in every corner, and butterflies danced gracefully in the air. Lady Elizabeth led them to a secluded corner of the garden where a variety of unusual plants grew. This is our magical section, she explained. These plants have special properties that can heal and protect. Perhaps some of them can work together with penicillin to create even more powerful remedies. Dr. Fleming's eyes sparkled with excitement. Thank you, Lady Elizabeth. This is a wonderful opportunity to expand our knowledge and discover new possibilities. As they explored the garden, Dr. Fleming and the mice collected samples of the magical plants. They carefully documented their findings, eager to return to the lab and begin their experiments. The mice scampered about, helping to gather leaves and petals, their tiny paws working diligently. As the sun began to set, casting a golden glow over the garden, King George joined them. Dr. Fleming, I am truly impressed by your work and your dedication. I believe that together we can achieve great things and bring hope to many who suffer. Dr. Fleming bowed deeply. Thank you, Your Majesty. With your support, we will continue our research and strive to make the world a healthier place. And so, with hearts full of hope and determination, Dr. Fleming, Mopsy, Topsy, Flopsy, and their new friend Lady Elizabeth returned to the lab. They knew that their journey was far from over, but they were ready to face any challenge that lay ahead. The magical garden had given them new inspiration, and the support of the king had strengthened their resolve. Together, they would unlock the full potential of penicillin and discover even more wonders in the world of science. Back in the lab, Dr. Fleming and his little friends worked tirelessly, experimenting with the magical plants they had collected from Lady Elizabeth's enchanted garden. Each day brought new discoveries and excitement as they learned how different plants could enhance the power of penicillin. One morning, as they were deep in their research, a messenger arrived with urgent news. Dr. Fleming, terrible sickness has struck the nearby village of Greenfield. The villagers are suffering from a dreadful infection, and none of the usual remedies seem to work. They need your help. Dr. Fleming's heart filled with compassion. We must hurry to Greenfield, my friends. This is our chance to use penicillin and save the villagers. Mopsy, Topsy, and Flopsy scurried about, gathering the necessary supplies. They packed bottles of penicillin, enchanted plants, and all the tools they might need. Lady Elizabeth joined them, offering her knowledge and assistance. As they arrived in Greenfield, the sight was heartbreaking. The villagers were weak and pale, their faces marked by the ravages of illness. Dr. Fleming and his companions wasted no time. They set up a temporary lab in the village square, determined to bring hope and healing. The village elder, a wise old man named Harold, approached them. "Thank you for coming, Dr. Fleming. Our people are suffering greatly. Can your magical penicillin save us?" Dr. Fleming nodded with determination. "We will do everything we can, Elder Harold. With the help of penicillin and the enchanted plants, we will fight this infection." They began their work immediately. Dr. Fleming prepared doses of penicillin, while Lady Elizabeth brewed healing potions from the magical plants. Mopsy, Topsy, and Flopsy delivered the remedies to the villagers, their tiny hearts filled with hope and determination. As the villagers received the treatments, a miraculous transformation began. Slowly but surely, their strength returned, and the color came back to their cheeks. The evil germs were no match for the combined power of penicillin and the enchanted plants. One evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon, casting a warm golden glow over the village, Elder Harold gathered everyone in the square. "Thanks to Dr. Sat, Fleming, and his wonderful friends, we are recovering from this terrible sickness. Let us show our gratitude with a celebration." The villagers cheered, their spirits lifted by the promise of better health. They organized a grand feast, with tables laden with delicious food and decorations made from the flowers of the enchanted garden. Dr. Fleming and his companions were guests of honor. As they sat down to enjoy the feast, Mopsy, Topsy, and Flopsy scampered around, excitedly sharing stories of their adventures. "Dr. Fleming, look!" squeaked Mopsy, pointing to a group of children who had gathered around. "They want to hear about our discovery." Dr. Fleming smiled warmly and stood up to address the crowd. "My dear friends, it is thanks to all of you that we were able to make this discovery. Penicillin is not just the result of my work, but the combined effort of many. Together, we have shown that even the smallest among us can make a big difference." The children listened with wide eyes, inspired by the tale of the magical mold and the enchanted garden. They giggled at the antics of Mopsy, Topsy, and Flopsy, who proudly demonstrated how they had helped in the lab. Lady Elizabeth raised her glass in a toast. To Dr. Fleming and his brave little friends, may their discovery bring health and happiness to many more. The villagers echoed the toast, their hearts filled with gratitude and joy. As the celebration continued late into the night, Dr. Fleming and his companions knew that their journey had only just begun. With the power of penicillin and the support of their friends, they were ready to face any challenge that lay ahead. They had proven that even in the face of the most dreadful sickness, hope and determination could triumph. And so, the tale of the curious doctor and his magical discovery spread far and wide, inspiring many to believe in the power of science and the magic of nature. Dr. Fleming, Mopsy, Topsy, Flopsy, and Lady Elizabeth continued their work, always ready to lend a helping hand to those in need. Their adventure had become a legend, a fairy tale of courage, friendship, and the wondrous discovery of penicillin. And as they looked to the future, they knew that their greatest stories were still waiting to be written.